Hello, hello, hello. We are live. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
It is The Gathering. We are back for another episode of The Gathering. It is, how's it, Scott?
Davinia Reed.
We're back again. Y'all, it's a holiday, so we got people dipping in and dipping out. We got those that are a little under the weather, but God is still in control. And so we keep going, right?
We have to
just
keep
gotta
going.
keep things going. And that's a lesson in itself for
Gotta keep
life.
pushing.
We got to keep going. So we are here, Davinia and I, and we do have our other co-host that is going to come in. We got Dr. O. Dr. O. I'm good to see you. Let's see how it's looking. Your side is pretty. Welcome in, Natalie C. Thank you for joining me. We're trying to get our third co-host on this live, which is Dr. O. Miss Ogechi. And she's got some wisdom, some pearls of wisdom that she wants to share with us. We're all sharing, but she has a special initiative that's going on right now. And sometimes it's just a season of life that we're in. You know, that as we are walking through what we're walking through, there she goes.
There's. Hey guys.
Hey, welcome in, Miss Ogechi, Dr. O. Dr. O, Miss Ogechi.
Ogechi's fine. Ogechi's fine. Since I've known you since kindergarten.
Sorry, say again.
Since I've known you since kindergarten or first grade and so forth, Ogechi's fine.
First name basis. Okay, let's see. Now the volume is kind of low.
Let me try to do something over here.
Yeah.
Well, I did something. Did that work? No.
Let me make sure. I know my volume's on the other side, the second button. Yeah, right there.
How about now?
Oh, there goes I had to turn it up on this device. Okay, say it again.
How about now?
Yes, much better. All right. Well, welcome in. Happy December. We're so glad you get to join us this time. So it's 3 of us.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Now, greet the people. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Mm-hmm. My name is Ogechi Wokalema. I am a longtime friend of Haja's, but I am currently in California where I am a professor of kinesiology and public health. But also as someone who suffers from ADHD, I'm also an ADHD coach that also specializes in goal setting because that can be a major hindrance to your productivity if you don't know how to set and pursue goals in productive ways. So I am here just trying to be the best person I can to be able to serve these students as best I can and to serve myself as best I can so they can do God's things as best I can.
We love that. That's right. I was y'all check it out from Ogechi. Oh, not like somebody actually tell it about yourself. Like get out. I love it. I love it. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Welcome in. There's a few more people that have joined here. Welcome in. I think I see Chibu. All right, I see it. So at least I'm using the phone, you guys here, like trying to see this time. You guys, this is December. This is the holidays. Christmas is coming, and the other holidays that are surrounding this season, this time, the Advent season. There are things where we can partake in that bring a lot of joy. There's family time. This is, if nothing else, in this time of the year, I think people just think about it as family time, you know? Time to come home if you've been far away, you know, time to reconnect with your family. Time to reconnect with friends. We look at it, we know this is what is celebrated as the birth time of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. But again, people celebrate this time as just a time of love and unity and peace and everything else, you know. But it doesn't mean that everybody is always kind of in this holiday spirit,
Right.
you know. And so that's a little bit of what we're talking about today. It's just that we're still navigating life in the midst of what is typically a joyous time, typically a celebratory time, typically a time where, you know, it's a memorable time for a positive reason. There are a lot of people, and we just talked about some of these instances, and Dr. O, you're going to definitely lead us in some of this conversation. The statistics show that this is a time where actually this is a very high, is it grief populated time or a high depression and things like that are found. Talk to us a little bit about that, about what you know in your profession, what you're seeing, because we got to think about the world, you know, not just ourselves and what we're dealing with, but kind of what's going on with people around the world.
Right. So I happen to be blessed with a lot of mental health specialists who are mentally very healthy. Mental health specialists in my life who give me a lot of insight about just this time of the season. And also, since I'm a professor, just the anxiety levels of students tend to rise at this particular point because it is about family. It is about togetherness. And for those people who that may not be their portion, it is highlighted in this season. As for me personally, I have recently suffered a loss of my father. So I am literally about to have our first Christmas without my father figure in my life. So things that I've heard, like these elevated levels of depression, even seasonally, right? There's people, when I was in grad school, I went to grad school in Massachusetts where it got pitch dark at 2:30. So you had no sunlight, and I went through this season of seasonal affective disorder, or that depression that comes in December or in the winter years, that's going to be precipitated by just the weather and the lack of sunlight. But then you add on the environmental issues, the relational issues, the grief, the loss. This season is ripe with a lot of our for people to not be their best, and for their affect, their mood, their emotional wellness to take a pretty big punch, if you will. And it's really good to be able to be connected to people that can kind of stabilize you, to ground you, and to really be protective about you at this season. But not everyone has that. So as I'm a professor and I'm seeing students, their grades are going crazy, they're coming into my office more often. It's just been something that I've seen anecdotally, but also research says this is a very trying season for many, many people. And so I'm going through my own personal journey because I've heard about it. You know how you can hear about things all day long, but when it hits you personally, it's like, oh, okay.
It's a little bit different. It's not theoretical. Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm usually the person like, oh, let's go get your goals. I'm like your cheerleader. A lot of goal setting coaches. We're how to motivate you to not only have the vision, but to implement your vision. And when that intersects with grief, everything goes out the door. And so for me, learning that you have to have a game plan even for that. And that game plan may need to shift for whatever it was beginning of the week, the grief, whatever issue happened, and what happens after that, it has to adjust. And so I'm literally learning on the job and adjusting. But what I know for me is to be able to share, which is one of those things they say, journaling and getting it out of your head is important. Sometimes at people, I would recommend counselors. I recommend having people that are really close to you, who know you intimately, so you can grieve as authentically and as fully as you can, but just getting it out of you. So part of me, I always say I'm a part artist, part scientist. And so part of my grieving is to artistically let it out. So I've been posting my father's pictures, our videos. I document everything. So I have pictures and videos of just cute little excerpts of his life that are just medicine to me now. So I'm able to be able to go and hone in on those, just curate those memories for me to continue just to focus on those positive aspects of his life. Because literally it's been less than a month, but it's been such, it's been a blessing to be able to focus on those things that gave us joy, because the grief is going to be there no matter what.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So I don't know what you think, but because I do want to come back to your business, because we do want to focus on, you know, coaching and things like that. But, you know, people deal with grief in all kinds of different ways. And so I know there's going to be great tips that you're going to be able to advise and kind of give to the audiences and talk to us as we are navigating through life, because we never know what's going to happen on any day.
Right.
But talk to us a little bit about what the daily looks like. So, you lost your father. First of all, we just want to say condolences to you. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for being willing to share with our audiences just a little bit of your journey, that as you are walking through this, God is also positioning you to be able to help people walk through what they want. So our condolences to you and your family, and our prayers definitely go up to you. We've been continually praying for you, and we will do that. But talk to us a little bit about what it looks like, because to lose someone that is, like you said, the patriarch of your family, somebody that's so important and so key, and even if it's not, loss is loss.
Right.
Loss is loss. I heard somebody say recently, and I know this for myself, having experienced it, but, divorce and other types of things, they are loss. And people like to look at it like, okay, well, this is just a little bit different. No, it is something that is traumatic that you once had, or however long you had it and experienced it, and it's no longer part of your world. So that is trauma in itself and an adjustment for life. So talk a little bit about what the daily look like, the ups and downs with that, because I think that's what people need to kind of know it's okay to keep going, because
grief is tricky.
Yeah.
It's tricky. You never know when it's going to hit you.
Yeah. So you have anything to share with us, kind of like just how you've been in this month navigating life?
Yeah, piggybacking off of this, it does come because I do think we've all maybe heard of someone who's lost someone. I would say this is my first intimate loss. I was a very intimate part of my father's caretaking, so it wasn't from afar. My father's in Houston, I'm in California, but I flew often to go take care of him, to help him out of bed, to help him bathe. It was an intimate caretaking with daughter and father. So there's something about that I think also you kind of hinted at it. It disrupts your normal rhythms of living. It's a divorce. You may want that man gone, but once he's gone, there's still going to be a disruption in the normal rhythm of your life, and there is that relationship is or your thoughts of what it could be. There's so many layers to what loss is. So I love the way that you emphasize that, because sometimes we'll hear something and people will say, oh, he lived a long life. Yes, he did. And I still feel lost. I tell people I have the and also ministry. This can be true and this also can be true. So yes, it's of course, and he was horrible. And also I feel grief. It's okay. So I tell people, one, just to have an and also ministry. So that ministers to me, so that I can also be whatever the thoughts are coming, because they come in waves, and I'm learning because they're paralyzing. So I can literally be on my goal setting. I have ways of like color coding my day and seeing how things are going to go, all the tricks and trades that I do. And I had to be able just to release that, because it can be paralyzing. Times literally you'll be thinking you can go and do certain things, and the grief will come, and that wave will be so suffocating, it'll be so paralyzing. And I've learned to sit in it. Like there's no need to fight it, like I need to do this and they need that. I've learned that my self-care is paramount in that day. The wave of grief is legitimate. It is a real feeling. It needs some place to go, and I need to accept and to sit in it. No, I don't want to be overwhelmed by it where I'm getting into sickness, but I do need to give it room to be. So I've learned, like in the daily rhythm, whatever I set out to do, it may be disrupted, and that is okay. Like that's the goal. That's okay. And I think some people get guilty about letting themselves grieve. Like, oh, they have so many things to do. And so whatever the grief wave may come and it disrupts you for 2 hours. I found myself sitting in my car for 2 hours. I felt, why can't I get out of my car? And I felt that, you a big girl, get out the car. I was like, no. You just lost your father. Sit. And I just sat there, and it helped me just to be able to let it out. But you have to give yourself grace to let the waves of grief do what they do. Because they're going to be waves, and they're going to be out, and they're going to come in. So my daily rhythm, I tend to say I'm big about nature therapy. I'm a woman that responds to God's nature. I feel him close when I'm close to his creation. I happen to be in a city where I get to be very close to his creation. So I'm in walking distance of a beach, and I intentionally go every morning.
Lovely. Yeah.
the ocean. I think, and I do think God sends it. He sends dolphins. He sends seals. He sends pelicans. I love to see nature in its natural form, and it's not by coincidence. So I'm looking at what God is sending me, maybe in ways that I'm not expecting, but some ways I'm asking for, and He'll give it to me if I'm just receptive to the fact that this is something that I need to do. I need to give room intentionally, just to be. And you can say grieve, but just to be, because whatever that looks for you.
Okay.
You may be swallowed in tears, or you can be silent for 2 hours, but that's whatever you do, but you won't know what that is unless you say, I give myself the intentional time to do it. Versus, okay, well, thanks to I'm gonna grieve for 5 minutes. You may want to understand that just give your time to even understand what that means for you. And what it means for me, becoming more real to me every day.
Yeah. So that's good. Give yourself an opportunity to just be. Whatever that looks like, and for however long it looks like, with no excuses and no explanations to anyone, yourself. And then the other important thing I heard was being open to what God sends you, because I think our hearts cry out, God help me, and we're crying out for relief. We're crying out for relief from where we are and what we're feeling and everything else that's going on. But I think in our heads, and this is just like life anyway, we expect it to look a certain way. Like, stop the pain, stop the tears, stop this feeling. And sometimes God is saying, no, I want you to walk through it, and I'm going to walk through it with you. And I'm going to send you some things that are going to bring you to a place where I can speak to you a little bit about, and I don't want to over talk this part, but I don't want to forget that there is healing in this process that has to take place. Now, it's not going to take place necessarily just right at the beginning, but think about from God's perspective. If we're saying, I just want the pain to stop, and it's like, okay, put a Band-Aid on it and move on. That's not what God is going to do. He's going to say, now, yes, it's going to look in the way that I want it to look like, because what is ultimately happening behind the scenes, whether you realize it or not, is if you allow it, I'm going to bring you to a place of healing. And so I think that's what you're experiencing, even saying the nature and being open to what seagulls and, things are coming and they're bringing messages, or sometimes conversations are just downloading and we're kind of like, where's this coming from? But I am feeling peace about this, or, you see a bird kind of like flying and it just looks so peaceful, and it takes you to a place where you transcend out of where you're physically sitting and what you're sitting in. These are levels of healing.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to our last conversation. When we're sitting in it, like Dr. O was saying, we just have to sit in it. It allows Him to carry us. If we allow Him to carry us, then we can absorb everything that He has for us. So, and when you said sit in it, I was like, yeah, give yourself grace to sit in it. And a lot of times, we don't want to sit in our mess, because sometimes it's hard. Yeah, it's what we brought on ourselves, and it's painful, and we don't want to sit in it. But if we just sit in it and allow ourselves to have His grace and say, okay, this did happen, but it wasn't all bad. What did I gain from it? Look at the glass half full instead of half empty, and then you can see, hey, He's carrying me. He's gonna take. He didn't bring me this far to just drop me off right here.
Clearly, if I made it this far,
He's going to carry me the remainder of my journey.
This is that key word. This is the journey.
Right.
And so I think that's why we have to give ourselves grace to understand that there's levels to the journey. Right. And just because right now it's really hard, and every day is full of tears, right, and every day is full of pain, and I don't want to talk to anybody, and I don't want to answer calls, and I don't want to, again, because grief is how we're handling it. It's all different forever. That's your time of that,
Right.
But guess what? When you're quiet sometimes, again, we're sitting in it,
you can hear it. You can hear it. Because when it's a lot of chatter, you cannot hear it. You cannot hear it.
And that's an enemy. That's an enemy. This happened just yesterday. And I'll be honest, I sat there, I said, you know what, God? I don't want nobody to ever say you don't, because I was out doing my normal thing, running some errands Saturday morning, and I stopped because there was something that was on my heart that I wanted to pray about, and I did. And as I did, I felt like God was in the prayer was like prompting me to just, sometimes you're praying and you just feel an unction to just keep praying about something maybe going on longer than you even, because you don't know what you're praying. Again, Holy Spirit gives us words to utter. I was praying, and I was like, something I said, and it was just kind of like, oh, okay, so what do you want me to do about this, God? Like, how, I literally asked the question, because we got to ask, when God is showing us something, we're not experts. We're supposed to say, what does this mean, God? How do you want me to do this? How is this supposed to look? What's my role in this? Even though you're showing me this doesn't mean that I got the roadmap. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, and I literally was like, God, so what am I supposed to do about it? Like, physically. I mean, I know I'm praying about this, we're going to do that, but is there something else you want me to do? And I went off, I was in the stores, I was doing some things, picked up something to eat, and I was going to another store, so I ate really quickly in the car. But I was quiet because I was sitting there eating, And as I was quiet, literally, I could feel and sense and hear the explanation of what it was making sense. God was like tying the pieces, but I wasn't saying a word at all. I was sitting there just eating my little, I'm not going to tell you what I was eating, But I was sitting there eating, and it just started coming together, and I was like, oh. And I said that, I said, you know what, God? I don't want anybody to say anymore. If they say that to me, like, I like, want to take off my shoes. Like, stop saying God doesn't speak. No, you don't listen. You're not positioning yourself to hear from Him. Right? We have to position ourselves because God did not create us so that we are just in this world trying to figure it out on our own. Trying to figure out what the game plan is. He will guide us if we will stop and ask Him and listen.
I think some of that, though, comes from our upbringing. Because I know growing up, you're taught you don't question God. And we took that for exactly what it was said. Like, don't question Him. Well, no, you can say, God, I don't understand this. Why is this happening? And then He'll reveal to us why it's happening. So it is okay to question Him. Now, do we understand every time He gives us the answer? Absolutely not. But then again, that's the journey. And we have to trust it.
As they say, we come to understand. And so that's really just growing in God, growing worship God. Because when we're first introduced to God, and however we are, we kind of take on whatever we're taught. Right. But God wants us to come to Him ourselves, right, and develop the relationship ourselves with Him so that we can hear from us and hear from Him and He can speak to us. It's not through another person, right? Which is the whole reason why Jesus Christ came and did what He did.
Yeah, because I feel like again, back to childhood, you're taught, you get on your knees and you pray. Now, sitting right here in this conversation and I'm having a prayer with God. Because it's like, no, I don't have to be on my knees. My head does not have to be down. My head is down here. No, I can sleep in position. It's not a certain posture. I can talk at any time and He's going to hear what I have to say. Yeah. He's the one person that always listens.
Always listens.
Always.
And then we just have to be ready to receive in whatever way He brings the response to us.
Yeah. Yep, I think that's it. Definitely.
How you doing over there? I'll get you.
Wait. I sat in it.
Yeah.
Right.
And so for everyone that, is, again, joining the conversation, thank you guys who are still joining in. This is real time. But we want to hear a little bit more about some of your perspectives, Ogechi. In some of you gave some good tips, and I do want to kind of reiterate those. But what about those that are finding hard time expressing themselves? So they're finding a hard time, where you have your creative side, and sometimes maybe that's how God is speaking to you as tapping into that, and that's bringing you to a place where, again, that in itself is such a connection to God, the creativity that we walk in and the giftings that he gives us, how we walk that out. But what about those that are having a hard time expressing themselves, connecting with other people, and just finding themselves pulling it away in an isolation, and not a God-induced isolation, but just an isolation that I just don't want to be. I don't want to be right now. I don't want to connect. I want to be in my corner. Are there any tips and advice and things you can speak to their?
That's a little difficult for me, as I'm kind of like I'm learning on the job, but it goes back because what God has been sending me for a long time. For those that are close to me, I was like, God is preparing me for something. Caretaking season that was pretty difficult. I was like, God is preparing me for something, and the word that He kept on giving me was grace. And sometimes we think about giving grace to others, but there's a big part of that is giving grace to yourself. Like when my father passed, I didn't want to hear from one single solitary person. I know people love me dearly. They were on the precipice of giving me a call, and in every correspondence, I said, "Please don't call. Love you dearly, but I'm gonna holler at you a little bit later." Grace towards me. I knew I couldn't handle it. I could not handle it, and that stemmed from a grace for myself, for me to give me the ability to grieve. Because sometimes what people may see as isolation maybe just needed time to be. And sometimes we're room to maybe it's a little bit of kind of the hustle culture of just doing or feeling obligated. There's that sense of obligation from my culture. I have a lot of cultural nuances that are peppering this experience. And I think we can be obligated to do certain things, but there's a certain grace for you to be able to say, I'm going to do this for me. And it may seem odd to other people, and I don't care because I need to make sure I have room to grieve because it's a legitimate need to grieve. But I do think there is a communal aspect of grief. Even if you take a section or a portion of time to do it solo, it needs to be other people. We are literally created to be communal beings. Now, what that looks like may be different, and I think people need to be able to give grace to themselves to know what that looks like, and other people need to give grace to the person that's grieving to what that looks like. Because you can want to do and comfort, and I realize sometimes people's ability or desire to comfort would usurp what I need for my comfort. And so to be able to understand those moments that you maybe want to isolate, you may be coming to an understanding what that means for you, and then communicate that with other people. And this may not be everyone's like immediate benefit, but I do think if you just think really, really long and hard, who are those that are closest to you? Like I've been doing this series called Grief, Goals, and Grace. And one thing I realized, who you connect with on the inside, those intimate levels, are those that give you the ability to grieve how you want to. So they're not questioning you're not taking phone calls. They're not questioning if you're going to go and do something to have a distraction from the grief. They're not questioning anything that you're doing because they're so intimately tied to you that they give you the grace and they give you the ability to grieve in the way that is uniquely yours. Find those people. It may be one person. I have one person that has contacted me every day since my father passed. And it hasn't been this long, dissertation of, and the Lord be with you, but it's all, how are you doing, girl? And it's all, but she knows me. She knows me, right? I think people know you intimately, and that could be anyone. No one knows but who that is besides who you are, who you know who that person is, basically, or who those people are. And my prayer is that people will just have, I call it the grief tribe, those people in your life. It could be 1, 2, it could be 10. But usually it's a couple. It's a couple, 2 or 3.
Yeah, you're not alone. It's not with everyone. Let's just be real. Yeah. During that time, you just don't want to hear a lot of voices and a lot of stuff. It's really those who understand. Yeah, just a few.
Yeah, usually it's to be able to, and hopefully have that, and maybe be able to be humble enough to ask for that help and for them to be there with you. Because what I'm learning now, people are wanting to help. Like, we are loved and dearly esteemed by people, my family, myself. Sometimes people don't know how to do it. And sometimes I'm alone to be able to tell them how to do it. I'm going to get with you in 2 weeks. You be blessed and highly favored. Be great. In Jesus' name. And in 2 weeks, I'm a different person as far as my ability to communicate and to engage people 2+ weeks later. But I didn't know until I knew that. But I had to room to kind of figure that out, for God to speak to me, for my feelings to settle a bit. It's a lot. it's a lot. So I think it's difficult. Maybe if that's not your portion, where you don't have maybe those 2 or 3 people, and that's where I'll just have to. That's where my expertise ends, and like grace and the prayers come, because sometimes God's going to work in that situation in ways that I can't even articulate. But I do understand the community is important, and it's going to look different in different swaths of community. Whether it be your coworkers are going to be a little different, your people at your church going to be a little different. The people, I have neighbors that have become family. There's neighbors that know more about the situation than people I've known for 20 years. I would have never thought that, right? So however God it, listen to what he's saying, like you said, listen, and then up accordingly based on what you have been able to in your quiet time ascertain what you need. Because I learned people will like to tell you what you need. I'm like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah. Yeah. And we do sometimes, with our heart, I'll be like, da, 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 like, okay, well, did you think about this? Did you think about that? We're always thinking about I'm just giving you suggestions, But at that time, because again, different levels. I've been on the other side of that, where it's kind of like I appreciate it. I really, really do. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I'm not there, and I'm not receiving from God. This is what I need to do. Like I don't feel that, and so giving room to people for them to walk through their process. I think that's important. And then on the flip side, like you're saying, giving yourself room to do that. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've been hearing, is really giving ourselves time to walk through what we're walking through, not forsaking what God is bringing to us, right? What healing God is bringing. What I don't even want to even get into what healing, because that's a God thing, So, but just what it looks like to our natural eyes. Whatever God is walking us through, or introducing to us, or allowing to be part of where we are, that's a God thing. And so, just being open to that, I think that's the biggest thing, because who can say, community is important, and I'm with you on that. Who can say that time, right? That it's actually time for that, I just remember a time for myself where it wasn't time for community. And I took that understanding from God, and I was okay with that. It took me a little bit, to be able to articulate that, because you got those that love you and they just want you to be all right. But when you start being okay with, I know this is what God is doing, and this is just what I need, I think it becomes easier.
Mm-hmm. But I also think those who love you, even though you may feel like you're hurting their feelings by saying, this is what I need. If they truly love you, they'll understand. They'll understand it.
Because they love you.
Right. It's no feelings. I know, like, at the end of May, my dad passed, and people were just coming out of the woodworks, and I thought it was so rude when people would walk up to us and they would burst out in tears. Oh. And then I'm looking like, how insensitive. Oh. Like, that's rude. Or either people would say, oh, I didn't know he was that sick. What difference does it make? It's not time for us to answer all those questions. And the one thing, right, give them time. But the one thing that my mom always said, she said, we don't know anybody an explanation for how we've navigated this situation. Mm. And after she stood and said that, then I was like, you're absolutely correct. We don't know anybody an explanation, and we're going to navigate this how we navigate it. And it's still crazy after all these months. My youngest daughter, the other morning when I saw her eyes were just completely puffy, and I'm like, what's going on? And she was like, I just was thinking about Papa all night, and I just couldn't get myself together. Well, she's not even an emotional type person. So for her, it was like when she got in her room in that quiet space, those emotions just really hit her, and she just dealt with them. Yeah. And she, she did the best that she could in that moment. I go back to giving ourselves that grace, what you said, giving ourselves that grace to just deal with it and sit in it and just, but I can't speak enough on those people who know you. They will accept whatever, of course you're not going to be rude, but they'll accept the fact that you say, I can't talk about it right now. I can't deal with this right now. I'm on, because you're literally on an emotional roller coaster during that time. And bringing it back to the holidays and those first days, the first birthdays that they're not right. And you're thinking about the fact of, oh, he would have been doing X, Y, and Z, or he would have been asking me what your mom want for Christmas, and it's like, I'll never hear that question again.
Yeah,
so it's hard.
It's hard as well.
But it's not too hard for God to help us navigate through.
And to give us resources. So I do want to tap into that, just a little bit before, because I know, Dr. O has some engagements for today, so we do want to let her get going on that. But before that, she does have a resource. Now, counseling, I know you'll talk a little bit about, just in general, just the advocate for counseling, reaching out for help and whatever it looks like. Sometimes it's just coaching. I know it's a new word now that everybody loves. Oh, it's coaching, it's life coaching, it's business coaching. There's a little bit difference between counseling and coaching from what I've understood from some of my clients and whatnot. But either way, these are resources for you to figure out what you need when you recognize I might need a little something, I might need a little help, and sometimes I don't want to necessarily go in that direction with people who are right here. Sometimes somebody that's outside of that can be helpful. You want to speak to that?
Yeah, I co-sign all that you just said. I do think that I have a friend of mine, we're kind of in a current season where she just lost her father, but she hasn't given herself kind of the space to grieve, and I see that it's about to come out, and hopefully not in maladaptive ways. But there's no shame in getting a counselor at this particular time. I do sometimes people think that, oh, that's just too much. I say no, it's kind of what they're there for. It's kind of what they're there for. Product of counseling, I can seek counseling with a little bit more ease. So I know if people, maybe have never done counseling, this may be like, oh, well, everyone loses people, everyone goes through loss, but it's a definite reliable and viable resource, because sometimes you don't want to inundate your friends, because even at this time, I'm well aware my friends are going through a lot themselves, right? I'm empathetic to that notion that I'm not the only one going through things, though my pain is still legitimate, and also ministry, amen. But it's like, so if you don't want to inundate your friends with it, God has given you other helpers, and they may come in the form of counselors. They may come in the form of coaches who can be your cheerleaders and your pacemakers, as far as giving you these ways to navigate through your days, navigate through your thoughts in ways that can keep you motivated. But they're tools. As a mentor, because part of my job as a professor is to be a mentor. It's kind of folded into profession, because you have to people are coming to you not only about their grades, but about their lives, right? And my mentees is that I pray that your helpers will find you. Your helpers will find you. It's amazing how God sends you helpers in so many different ways. And I find it interesting, people who are so resistant to maybe counseling or to coaching, literally that could be God's helper. But our finite minds are so resistant to that packaging. And it's interesting that we should be a little bit more flexible of how God may minister to us in the helpers that he may send, because the helpers may come in a different aesthetic or a different venue or a different way that we're used to. But God is literally saying, here, I'm trying to help soothe you in an avenue. And we're just like, well, no, not like that. Thanks. And then literally he's putting it in front of your face, right? Because even this particular talk, that when I saw your text, I was like, I don't have time for this.
We go on Zoom in January, and God is like, no, I just talked to you about divine helpers just a couple of days ago. I've been talking about you posted this, and guess what we're going to do? We're going to have one more conversation, because I just love that. I just want to interrupt and say that this is the season that God has been saying, I'm sending divine helpers, and we cannot judge what that is supposed to look like. Right. We cannot say, well, God, I've been asking you because I need help in this arena, and then somebody shows up And they're like, hey, I'm trying to help with this. You're like, no, because I need help with this. And it's like, you don't understand. Yeah, you're missing the point. It's like, stop trying to figure out how, and just receive what I'm giving. And you will see the blessing and what I'm giving you through the people and the resources and the opportunities that are helping both sides. So yes, divine helpers.
Telling you. Yeah, God rebuked me like maybe 2 seconds later. He was like, really? Really? So that's when you got my response. I was like, okay, well, this is my time. But yeah, I do think there's something about God sending you, because he's a good father. And he's going to send you all the types of relief you need. I just think that it comes in ways that we, again, our finite selves won't particularly predict. There has to be about our spirit, a receptiveness about our hearts that allows for us to go what we view to be God's supernatural, right? And I just thank him for that, because I sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't.
We are. No, like, that's not what I asked you for. God was telling me to help over here. And he's like, this is what I sent you. I want you to see it for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Receive it.
Mm-hmm.
Receive it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you're going to get out of here. We want to send you some love. But we do want to just, some hearts. There you go. Want to send you some hearts of love all the way over to Cali. But we want to, you have some things going on. If you can just end off with your coaching initiative so that people know how to get in touch with you. As far as the help that they may need. You may be a divine helper for them, as we know God is twofold. They may be divine helpers for you in a way as well. So can you tell us a little bit about how to reach you with your coaching initiative?
Yeah, so it's my baby, if you will. It's birthed out of my own need, or I would have loved to have it when I was a little younger, if you will. So as I mentioned before, ADHD and the executive functioning, I'm a divergent individual. We can think a little differently. Our executive functioning can be a little special. And I think sometimes do not engage it well, you won't be as productive as you need to be. And I think God has divinely orchestrated us to go on divine types of assignments and to do divine things and be conduits of service. And some of that comes on the day-to-day rhythm of your goals. And noting the goals, prioritizing the goals, implementing the goals, and when you can really exact those divine errands that he wants you to have. And so I see it as being it's academic, it's emotional wellness, but it's also to be very spiritual. And so it came off of that term. It's a knock of what you call that thing, gold diggers, like people, women or men that are after their significant others because of their money. So it's not a gold digger, but it's a gold digger. So the gold digger prof. I'm a professor, so I'm always setting goals for my students. But I thought about something about those neurodivergent individuals or people that have difficulty acknowledging and identifying and actually implementing their goals, which I had so much difficulty doing because I didn't know before I was diagnosed with ADHD. It's a way to be able to coach them through their days, identify, prioritize goals, have a game. And have accountability throughout that process. And so that's kind of the underpinnings of the gold digger or the ADHD coaching or the goal setting type of coaching, to allow people to really maximize all the giftings that God has given you. How can you maximize those by being really proficient in setting goals and implementing them so that you can be all that God has divinely orchestrated for you to be?
I love it. We're going to talk more about that. I already got some ideas right now. The Lord is speaking. I try to get you in, just more talk about this. Sometimes it's just on the tip, Sometimes I just need tips for navigating this or where I am right now, and I can kind of go on my way. So we may just kind of bring the conversation back, maybe not in its entirety, but still in this resource and navigating helpers and divine helpers and the resources that we need to get us to where God has for us to be. So that's all we have. Do you have something to add? I don't have anything to today. I'm so excited that I got a chance to actually lay eyes on you. Are you feeling the text? as opposed to text and everything else. So, and when you are, in the area, we will connect physically. But this is just fine for now because we never know where God is taking us and what He's doing in our lives. That's the point, we're all in different places.
We may be at the beach with you in Cali.
Honey, say that.
That is episode.
Like kind of coming out on the beach. So, but this has been such a blessing. Thank you for taking your time. I'll get you to share with us today. Thank you for sharing your heart with us today and your experiences as you're being led by God through this. We send prayers your way, prayers of comfort, prayers of just divine leading from God in this season over your life and with your family.
I received.
And so,
All right, guys.
So if our audience, I don't see any questions out there, but we had a whole bunch of people that joined on. We will put the replay out on our personal, I send it to you, we put it on our personal pages, share it there. It'll also be on the Of Lace and Grace TV site or TV channel. There you go. Channel on YouTube. We'll actually put that out there too. And so you guys join the conversation. It is the end of the year, and I guess we do gotta say Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
And Happy New Year to everyone because unless God says so, we will see you, so differently, we will see you in New Year.
See you in 2024.
2024, you guys, remember the tips from Dr. O today. Dealing with grief, giving yourself time, giving yourself space, giving yourself an allowance to sit in it, being open to what God is bringing to you by way of resources and divine helpers, or just what you need in the moment to help you get through your moments. So with that, we will talk to you soon. Be blessed.
Thank you so much. Take care.
You're welcome.